Spider-Man once became a god. No exaggeration. Cosmic Spider-Man is by far the strongest version of Spider-Man to ever be created, and we don't see him being topped anytime soon. With the power of a god flowing through him, the once friendly neighborhood Spider-Man became Captain Universe, a virtually invincible version of the iconic character. All wasn't well though, and these overwhelmingly strong powers even made him temporarily quit being Spider-Man. To give you an idea of just how strong this character was, with his new godly powers, Spider-Man accomplished feats such as punching Hulk and Thor into Earth's orbit and inadvertently killing Goliath while running through a list of villains like he was checking items off a grocery list. Simultaneously, he would also end up destroying his closest relationships and himself. Before we get into discussing the godlike Captain Universe version of Spider-Man, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is a brand new channel and we'd appreciate all the support we can get. We'll firstly make an important distinction. There are different versions of this Spider-Man, most notably the original from Earth 616 and the Earth 13 version of Peter Parker who retains the Uni power. We'll also later touch on the Miles Morales version. For the most part, we'll be focusing on the 616 version who loses the powers, however, the others will be explained as well. For starters, what is the Enigma Force, Uni power, and where did this name, Captain Universe, come from? Somewhat of an understanding of all this is vital to the story of Cosmic Spider-Man, so let's talk about it. Captain Universe is the entity tasked with protecting the universe, however, it is not a singular person or really a person at all. It's an identity or role assigned to a chosen one during a time of crisis. Anyone can be Captain Universe. There are hundreds of beings who have been passed the mantle. These beings range from heroes like Spider-Man down to even a dog, which we see during a Spider-Man What If comic. Pretty comedic, but hey, anyone can be a hero, right? In this very same comic, Peter literally loses his mind and becomes almost like an alien, but more on that later. So Captain Universe is not a person, but an identity, and those who have been chosen are essentially blessed with Uni power, a mysterious energy source originating from the micro universe. If you're familiar with the Ant-Man stories, you know what that is, but it's not very relevant to this video, so to sum it up, it's exactly what it sounds like, a micro universe existing in the larger universe we're all familiar with. The Enigma Force is, as its name implies, a mysterious energy that also resides in the macro universe. Anyway, this video is of course specifically about Spider-Man, so we won't go too deep into the origin of these cosmic powers. To sum it up in the words of Marvel, the Enigma Force manifests the Uni power which selects a host, surrounding them with a field of energy which transforms them into the costumed Captain Universe. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the story of how Spider-Man ended up with these cosmic powers. The events take place during the Act of Vengeance storyline in the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 158. Loki had created an alliance between various villains. The team included iconic villains like Magneto, Doctor Doom, and Kingpin. The concept was actually a clever idea. They believed their targets, the heroes, had become too familiar with their tactics over time, and so it made sense to throw them off by switching enemies. For example, the Human Torch had become too familiar with Trapster, so instead he was sent after Spider-Man with the hopes of throwing him off. This switch actually worked great and left Spider-Man drowning with little chance of survival. No exaggeration there. Spider-Man would survive this incident though, and the next time the two met, things would go very differently. Before that though, unfortunately for Trapster, something would happen before that next meeting. Peter Parker was at Empire University, aiding Professor Lubitsch with his experiments attempting to tap into an unknown power source. Peter had feared this power would overload the university's power lines, and he was right. One of the machines would overload and release insane amounts of what would later come to be known as Enigma Force. To protect Professor Lubitsch, Peter would push him out of the way and take in the mysterious energy throughout his body. This would begin the change for Spider-Man. From this point on, he would have new abilities which helped him easily defeat the Trapster during their next encounter. Spider-Man's spidey senses no longer simply sensed danger, they could sense everything. Suddenly, what was a very convenient ability became a painful burden that had his head splitting, from superpower to now just a headache. Now he would be sensing dangers from all directions and couldn't fight his instincts. Where there was danger, he had to go. Other new abilities included the ability to manipulate matter, and he would use this to do things like change his webbing shape to form things like hands or spears, and he would also be able to change his webbing into adamantium, one of the strongest metals in the Marvel universe. It only gets crazier from there because Spider-Man would also now be virtually indestructible. Attacks that would previously deal heavy damage, stun him, or even kill him were now just minor inconveniences. Spider-Man could also now fly. Yes, fly. The web slinger now had a new means of transportation. And he wasn't a fan of it either, saying it was for the birds. With these new powers came the ability to fire energy blasts also, and if that wasn't enough, Spider-Man would have all his basic traits enhanced, such as enhanced super strength, hearing, sight, speed, everything. These abilities would change his life, and while possessing them, he would be, well, like we said earlier, beating villains like he was checking items off a grocery list. You'd think this would bring joy, but in reality, the cosmic abilities became a burden. Spider-Man is at his base already strong, but it was a great power that he had learned to be responsible with. He now suddenly had more than he knew what to do with. In his own words, it was like having the power over life and death, like playing God. It was no longer a question of could he save the world, but should he? Is that something he should be doing now? Perhaps the greatest feat we get to see Cosmic Spider-Man of Earth 16 accomplish is taking on a Tri-Sentinel once he had awakened his full power and truly became Captain Universe. Previously, he had the powers of the Enigma Force. However, Dr. Lebich's experiment from earlier on blocked some of the energy. As a result, he got some of the power but not the knowledge that comes with being chosen by the Enigma Force. The Enigma Force foresaw the creation of the Tri-Sentinel and chose Spider-Man to take up the identity of Captain Universe with the mission of defeating it. Loki had magically amplified and merged 3 Sentinels, creating this threat to destroy New York late in the Act of Vengeance storyline. Now transformed into Captain Universe, Spider-Man knew what this threat was, and also he finally knew what his abilities were, as well as his current identity as Captain Universe. As Captain Universe, Spider-Man would be able to defeat the Tri-Sentinel. However, with the elimination of the threat, his powers too would leave. While he would after the fact believe he should have done more with the power, I find it hard to believe he ended up missing it too much after the issues that came along with it. The story of Cosmic Spider-Man doesn't end there though. We do still have the Earth 13 version of the character who kept the powers and the What If comic. It only gets crazier from this point on. Appropriately titled, What If Spider-Man Had Kept His Cosmic Powers? The comic covers exactly this hypothetical scenario. Peter came to the conclusion that the power stayed with him because it had never encountered anyone with a greater sense of justice, a bold theory, which he'd expressed to MJ while using his new powers to shift her outfit into a fitting outfit for Mrs. Spider-Man. And I'll just say right here, Peter was on demon time. You can look at it for yourself here, I won't say anything more about that. From that point on, Spider-Man would be unstoppable, even ending conflicts easily that the Avengers would have struggled with previously. Cosmic Spider-Man even took on Venom, a battle he easily won. Not only did he easily win, but now onto global conflicts, bigger and better things. He basically offered Venom the chance to be the city of Spider-Man. From there, Cosmic Spider-Man would be everywhere, doing everything. Cleaning the ocean, bringing waste to the sun to clear pollution, just being there for everyone. This might seem all fine, but really, Peter had lost himself during all of this. To give you an idea of how bad things were, during a visit to Aunt May's, his spidey senses went crazy and he transformed into Captain Universe and just flew right out the window in front of her, causing her to faint and end up in the hospital. MJ would later explain to her now alien husband how irresponsible this was. Alien may be an exaggeration, but that pose and the white eyes really do it for me. Hurt by the way Peter was now behaving, MJ would hear, "Leave Peter." Later, he'd fight Thor after failing to convince him to use his godly powers to make some dried out land more fertile. It all sounds crazy, but that's really what happened. In the end, Cosmic Spider-Man in this What If would willingly let go of his power and have it return to the collective instead of belonging to an individual. In the process though, he would also lose his spider abilities and become an ordinary person. A wild ending to a wild story, but that's just how these Marvel What Ifs always are. Earth 13 Spider-Man, unlike the Earth 616 version we just went over, actually ended up keeping his powers. To give you an idea of how strong this man was, his universe was once a safe haven for all the other spider totems. During the Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Verse storyline, the totems were being hunted by the inheritors for their spider essence, and Earth 13 was the safe zone, otherwise known as the Spider Refuge. Cosmic Spider-Man in this story was very confident, explaining that he kept the powers of a god and that the inheritors would be foolish to face him here. And my god, would this confidence backfire. Earth 13 specifically was the safe zone because if he were to leave this universe, the powers would stay behind, making him not much different from the Spider-Man of Earth 616. To say the least, their plan to use Earth 13 as a safe zone didn't work out. Solus and the other inheritors did dare to go to Earth 13, and upon their arrival, Cosmic Spider-Man was not afraid. He was very much underestimating Solus and the inheritors and would be pushed back. Feeling the pressure, Spider-Man would call out that this was impossible, declaring himself as the most powerful thing in the universe. Solus would cleverly reply that, yeah, he was, in this universe, declaring himself as a god who looms over all realities. Spider-Man would stay confident, but it was no use. Solus would grab his face and declare that the Enigma Force, pure life energy, was nothing before him. The energy and essence of Cosmic Spider-Man, the god of Earth 13, would be drained completely. A very disappointing end for such a cool character that was very much hyped up. He was up against his perfect match though, it couldn't be helped. The story didn't end there though, because Miles Morales too would end up wielding the cosmic powers. Learning from the mistakes of the Earth 13 version, he would end up faring better against Solus, helping finally end the conflict against the inheritors. As Captain Universe, Miles used some attacks we hadn't seen previously, notably Enigma Force Venom Strike and Sword Vigor. Overall, the Miles Morales version of Captain Universe is probably my favorite design, but all the variants look really cool. And that about wraps up all you need to know about Cosmic Spider-Man, arguably one of the coolest variations of the Spider-Man character. But that's just my opinion. Let us know in the comments below what you think or what you would like to see us cover next. If you haven't already, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to Plot Armor Comics with notifications on to never miss an upload. Until next time, keep that plot armor on you. I'm KJ, have a great day. Goodbye.